Hi everyone. Gosh, this is a bit weird, isn't it? I've not done an Instagram live. I've only been doing Zoom. Hi Mandy. Can you talk to me so that I know who's here? Hi Lynn. Hi Harmeet. Hi Abneet. Hello everyone. Hi Lorna. So this is a little bit strange because I'm used to doing Zoom with more interaction. So let's see how this goes. It's really a bit weird looking at yourself. I hope you're all well. I hope everyone's keeping safe and have just taken part in the clap for carers. We've got fireworks going on, so I hope that doesn't interfere. Hi Lorna, thank you. Hi Harinda, my husband. So this is the thing now. My husband's joined, which is going to be really interesting. Hi Belinda. Hi Deepa. So thank you. Thanks for joining my first ever Instagram live. And the reason I'm doing this is because I was speaking to Lorna earlier today and she just kind of, I was going to say bullied me, but I think the word is encouraged to maybe come on here and hi Pradeep, hi Guji Ka Khalsa, hi Guji Ki Fateh, Deepa, hi. And said, look, Lorna said to me this morning, she's like, I always feel so great when you've spoken to me and you've uplifted me and inspired me. Why aren't you doing this on Instagram Live? And I gave her lots of reasons why I wasn't doing it. And then I realised that actually they were all excuses. So I just thought, why don't I do it and just be very impromptu and just do it. So thank you to everyone who sent in their questions. I'm going to try to answer them and let's just see how we go. This might be a two-parter. I might have to do part 1 and part 2. If you've got any other questions, you're welcome to add them in a comment. But one of the questions I always get asked is, how did I come into Sikhi and what was my pathway into Sikhi and what impact has that had on my personal life and my professional life? How has that had an impact on how I'm raising my kids and all of that stuff? And it's not something I usually talk about, particularly on this platform, because Asian Women in Business it's wider than just about Sikhi. It is about faith and it is about spirituality, but my faith is a huge part of me. Deepa, hi. My faith is a huge part of me. It's a very visible part of me. And I get why there's always an intrigue and curiosity around how did I find my faith, and actually sometimes what I say is my Guru Sahib found me. How did that all come about? Hi Chin, hi Deepa, hi everyone. Oh, thank you so much. I'm getting lots of lovely waves and comments. So the first thing is, I just want to share that I didn't grow up in a Sikhi family. I grew up in a very typical Punjabi family in the Midlands. I'm from West Midlands, I'm from Wolverhampton. And I grew up in the 80s and the 90s when actually there wasn't the resources that are available now. There isn't the level of knowledge that there is available now about Sikhi, about our culture and our faith and our history. So my parents, by the way, I love my parents. I'm very close to my parents. They did the very best that they could do, given all that they had going on at the time, which is they were a very young couple, got married when they were 18, 19, started a family very quickly, had their extended family, but neither of them had their parents in this country. And I think for a lot of parents at that time, it was about survival. It wasn't about necessarily having a faith or having Sikhi or any faith. So that wasn't something that they were aware of or that they could share or educate us on. I always actually say, growing up in the Midlands, Bhangra music was a big thing in the Midlands. We had Malkeet Singh and A.S. Kang, and we had B21 and the Sahotas who are from Wolverhampton. Hi Amrit Pal, hi Lorna, yeah, Lorna Birmingham Massive. So I always say my family were and still are probably very much a kalbi or esh mitro type family. It's all about having a good time and getting family together and drinking and sorod, yes. And there's nothing wrong with that. Actually, I had a really great, it was fun. That kind of upbringing was fun. We used to watch a lot of Bollywood. We used to listen to a lot of Bhangra music. We used to choreograph dance routines with my cousins and my neighbours, weddings and the community. But the Punjabi culture was a big, big thing for me growing up. I used to be the Gidda queen. When we used to have weddings, everyone used to know that I would be the one that was doing all the Gidda and the Bolia and getting everyone up. So that was my upbringing. And it was fun. It was, when you don't know any better, of course it's going to be fun. But faith and religion, I would say, it was not even very. I don't even know where it would have been on the priority list. It just wasn't. It wasn't there. So, growing up in that environment, I knew about that we have a creator, we have Vaheguru. I knew that we had Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and I knew about Guru Gobind Singh Ji, and probably that was it. I wasn't taught about anything else, anything about our itihas, our history. I wasn't taught about, I can speak Punjabi, I can understand Punjabi. I wasn't taught to read or write Punjabi. That was a question that came up. How do you do your part? Can you read or write? I can't. I do my part in Romanized Punjabi. Oh, maybe I'll talk about that later. So that was our upbringing. Hi, I can see Anna has joined. Hi, Anna. And I was just saying about our upbringing in Wolverhampton in the 80s and 90s was all about the Bhangra music. And so Anna's dad, it was a big part of Bhangra music as well. And it was fun. All of it was fun. But it just meant that we didn't ask ourselves any of the big questions. But what it also meant was that a lot of our culture and our religion was implemented in a way that had a negative impact on women. So by that I mean, I grew up and I was told that Sikh girls don't cut their hair, and that Sikh girls don't wear makeup, and Sikh girls don't do this, and Sikh girls don't do that. And actually it wasn't about Sikhi, it was about being Punjabi, and it was about being Punjabi in the Midlands, which has a very distinct, I find, so I live in the southeast now, I live in Surrey, but I do find as you go up more towards the north in England, the more traditional the communities are. So you know what? I accepted that. We accepted, really, yay! Quite a few people are from the Midlands. I didn't know that, Alicia. That's so cool. So we accepted that because we didn't know any better. We didn't have the resources. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have books or stuff to check to say, actually, is this true? Is this right? That this is what my faith is teaching us. Until probably in my mid to late teens, when I think I found a book or something. I think we went to India when I was 13. No, I think we went to India when I was 13 and I got a book about Sikhi. And then I read and I understood that actually the tenets of the faith are for both. There is no discrimination. So if women are encouraged to keep their hair, men are encouraged. There is no difference. And as I started learning and understanding, what it actually did was, rather than me going into Sikhi and embracing that, I actually rebelled, because what I was able to do then was call my parents and our community out on the BS and say, no. If men can cut their hair, women can cut their hair. If men can do this, women can do this. And that was that time, and it was just, and I think part of the reason was that because of the community I was with, the friends I was with, I didn't have a Sikh group, I didn't have Sangat, I didn't have that support from my family. Yeah, and so Anna knows, because Anna and I go way long back. So what happened was that there's a couple of things that did happen that left me in no doubt that we are part of a bigger plan here, that we are part of, that there is a creator, that there is something bigger that is going on with our lives, that we are always being supported and being held by forces that are seen and unseen. And so two of the things that had happened to me was, one was, I remember I went to the Gurdwara. So we only used to go to the Gurdwara when it was like a wedding. Sometimes, I'm going to be honest, sometimes we used to miss the Anand Garage and go straight to the reception. Like, it wasn't, I'm just trying to emphasize how little value was placed on faith and religion in Sikhi at that time. But I remember once I went to the Gurdwara and I heard Kirtan, and it just, like, I was rooted to the spot and I was overcome with emotion. And I just remember shaking and crying, and I wanted to scream, I wanted to howl, something just took over me. And at the time, I didn't understand it. No one else could explain it to me. And it was something that was both, it was a distressing experience because I couldn't explain it, but the experience of it was also an experience of belonging. And what I realised subsequently when I did get into Sikhi, when I started asking questions, was that feeling is a feeling called berag. And that feeling is when your soul knows you have been separated from the great divine, and it wants to go back. So that's what we believe as Sikhs. We believe that we are part of divinity, that we are having a very human experience, that our soul knows where it's come from, and the soul's connection is back with the creator, who we call Vaheguru. And that experience was a bodily experience that my brain just couldn't comprehend, and no one around me, my parents, my family, my cousins, no one could comprehend that. And it was, so I almost buried that experience because it wasn't something I wanted to talk about. But there was a couple of other things that happened as well, and I just remember feeling that I'm being guided, I'm being supported. At the time, I remember thinking I'm being supported by angels. And in Sikhi, we believe in that we have our shaheeds, so these are martyrs of our faith who have crossed over, but who are with us, who are present, who are supporting and guiding us. And I already knew some of this, but didn't know it, if that makes sense. So how I really started to come into my faith was, looking back now, is all down to our karmic connections. And by that, I mean that I obviously met my husband, who was going to be my husband, and Harinder grew up in a Sikhi family. His mum and he has a great respect for Sikhi, for our history, for our Guru Sahib. And when I look back now, I can see that he could that was your biggest relationships in your life. So who you're married to, who your parents are, who your siblings are, relationships that we don't necessarily have control over. Oh, Ravita, hi, RP Makeup. Ravita, I was just saying earlier how growing up in the 80s and 90s, it was all about the Bhangra. And actually, I'm going to share our connection. So Ravita's dad and my dad used to sing in a Bhangra band together in the 80s. So that's how I know Ravita. We grew up together, which we've got some interesting stories. So yes, yeah, and Pradeep has just said it's Sanjog. So it is about where your Sanjog have been written, where our Garam have been written together. So I've shown my dad and my brother, my extended family. We don't have Singhs in our paternal family. So my dad's side of the family is a family that we grew up with. So for me to have met a Singh and to say I'm going to get married to a Singh, and not even a Singh who has a trimmed beard, who drinks or any of that stuff, but a Singh who had been blessed with Amrit, who had grown up in the faith, who had a great reverence for the faith, was a shock for my parents. It was a shock for my extended family. I remember on my wedding day, so a lot of my family got to meet Harinder beforehand, but lots of the extended family, all those 500 people that don't get to meet but turn up at the wedding, I could literally see their jaws drop when they saw me and Harinder, and they were just like, wow, she has got married to a Singh, and a proper Singh. And I remember lots of people coming up to my dad saying, I can't believe it. I can't believe your son-in-law is a Singh, because my dad is a bit of a party animal. That's the kind of culture that we grew up in. But that was the first thing. I think Sikhi was always meant for me and was brought to me because of that karmic relationship. I don't know if I'd got married to someone else, and there were other proposals that Ravita's just said. I remember my dad telling me, I was genuinely shocked. Someone actually said, I've got to share this. I don't even jot these here, but someone actually said, I remember we got some messages after we took Amrit, and someone said to me, Benji, are you Balvinder Singh's daughter? I think we need to do a DNA test. Like, how has this happened that you have found faith? So that is the first thing. I think, I don't know, maybe if I had got married to someone who wasn't into Sikhi, I don't know. But I do have faith that I think if Sikhi is meant for you, it will find you. Or whatever faith, if Christianity, if Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, whatever, if the path to the divine, to the Vaheguru, to the Creator is meant for you, it will find you. And what happens is you're left little breadcrumbs. So I was left breadcrumbs in my teen years, but didn't follow them. I decided that I wanted to go and party and have a good time and go off to university and do all of that stuff. I didn't want to go into Sikhi. But when But obviously there was a bigger plan for me, and that plan started when I met Harinder when I was 23, we got engaged. We got married when I was 25. We've been married 14 years this summer. But through him, my mother-in-law has a great love and respect for Sikhi, for Gurbani, for Sangat, for Mahapurush. Mahapurush are saints in our faith. They are highly enlightened spiritual beings who are a direct line to our Guru Sahib, a direct line to Vaheguru. And that was another thing, because actually I was brought up with very little respect for Mahapurush. I was actually brought up in a culture of, they're all fake, Bakhandi Babbe. But that's not true. There are genuine saints out there. And in my experience, I would say there have been a couple, maybe 3, that have had such a pivotal impact on me and coming into Sikhi. So I remember when I first got married, like we had Mahapurush visiting us, and it was actually Baba Iqbal Singh Ji from Barusab. And my mother-in-law said to me, okay, they're going to come over to meet with us, and this is what we're going to have to do. And I was just like, I remember being really scared. I remember being really overwhelmed. And I remember thinking, oh my God, they're going to know that Gurbani Shaima is the word of our Guru. So it's our scriptures. That they're going to know what I've been up to, and they're going to know that like I'm not into Sikhi. And so I remember this so vividly. This was 14 years ago. I remember taking them a cup of tea and like saying darshan to them, and they just looked at me, and I just wanted the whole ground to open up. And they said it in Punjabi, and what they said was that Gurbani is written, Sikhi is written for you. And then they said to Harinder, you have to hold on to her hand. And I was just remember thinking, I don't think that's true. I don't know how that's going to come about. But clearly they saw something in me that I perhaps didn't acknowledge and recognise in myself. So, but the first 5-6 years of marriage for us wasn't about Sikhi. It was about working. It was about building our professions. It was about building up our home. It was about really getting to know each other. And one of the questions I did have was, what do you do if you're on a different spiritual connection to your partner? So what do you do if one of you is into faith and the other person isn't? If one of you is religious and the other person isn't? And usually what happens when that happens is it's the women, so it's our sisters who are yearning for their faith, or yearning for that connection, but perhaps they feel a little bit held back by their husband. But for me, it was the other way around. So Harinder was already into Sikhi, he was already into our faith. It was me that wasn't. Actually, I remember when we met, I had a bob cut, and I remember when it was starting to get like, we just thought, okay, there's compatibility here. We feel like this could go somewhere. And I just remember laying all my cards on the table and saying to him, I don't know what's going to happen with me and my faith. I don't know how this is going to look and feel, but I just can't be with someone who's going to dictate to me that, don't cut your hair, don't do this, don't do that. So there needs to be a mutual respect and regard for that. And he actually said to me that that's absolutely fine, but it works both ways. So don't ever tell me to cut my hair. Don't ever tell me to do X, Y, Z, because that's not my life. And that's the thing I would say to anyone who is struggling with their partner, is to exercise the same tolerance and patience and love and compassion, to bring those qualities in yourself in order for them to step onto the path. Because if you're not doing it, if you're not feeling it and exuding it yourself, but you're expecting them to do it, there's a hypocrisy there. So that's how it worked for us. And he had to wait a long time. I mean, we were blessed with Amrit 3 years ago. So he waited 10 years. So we were married for 10 years of before I was in a space. But one thing he did say to me is that any journey into faith, with the Creator, with God, is a very personal journey. And in our Sukhmani Sahib, which is one of our prayers, actually Guru Sahib they tell us, where no one else is going to be there for you, you're not taking anyone else with you. And when we start the journey into our next life, we're not taking anyone with us. So make your connection with the divine and focus on that. Let that be the connection that holds you. And when you do that, you have the virtues that come from that. So the virtues of patience, the virtue of compassion, and let them follow you. Let them go which way they're going to go. Now, the other thing then is what happens to a marriage if you're so radically different. My only thing I would say is surrender to the divine and surrender to our higher power, and understand that if it's meant for them, if it's meant for you, it's all going to happen. But it's going to happen in a timing which isn't of yours. And if that means that maybe you're not meant to be together at some point, with grace and with love and with total acceptance, all of that will plan out as well. However, if children are involved, what we've always got to remember is that fathers and mothers are always going to have an influence on children as well. So as much as possible, we can be on that same page together. Let them be. I don't force spirituality on anyone in our home. Yeah, I think that's true. I think the tricky bit is, though, can I just say, okay, so how but what really then, so that was the first trigger. The first trigger of me coming into Sikhi was my soul was aligned and meant to be aligned with Harinder, who was already into Sikhi. But having said that, it didn't happen overnight. It was a 10-year journey of me having to feel my own way and do my own thing. The next thing that happened for me was that I had Thea. So I had my first child, Thea, when I was 30 years old. And when you have children, we all have hopes and dreams of what we want for our children, what the example that we want to set them, the role models that we want to be for them. And I, like all other parents, have had the same hopes and desires. And you also reflect back on your own childhood. You reflect back on, what was great about my childhood? What do I want to replicate? What would I like to do a bit differently? What were the lessons? And the thing that kept coming up for me was that Sikhi wasn't a part of my childhood. And I felt that was to a detriment. I felt that was something missing. I felt that I didn't want my children, I didn't want my child not. Oh, hi, Kiran, you joined. Hi, Job, I can see you're there as well. Hi, Manraj. Nikki, hi. That's so nice. And you know what happened? What was the most pivotal thing that happened? And this is me being really, really candid. So I used to drink alcohol. And I'm just thinking I've probably got a few cousins on here that... but hey ho, let's go with it. And when Dale was about 14, 15 months, I had some family over and friends over, and she had a play kitchen. And in the play kitchen, there were goblets, they have goblets. And she was playing with her cousins and her friends, and they were mimicking me and my friends of drinking wine and being all, And I'm telling you, in that moment, I just saw my 14-month-old mimicking my behaviour of drinking alcohol in a goblet, doing cheers and being a bit... And I I think my blood ran cold. I just remember I just had this moment of, I do not want that for my daughter. I do not want, that's not the mimicking I want her to emulate. That's not the life I want for her. But what life do I want for her? And then I just remember reflecting back and thinking, what a shame it is that I'm 31 years old. I don't know anything about my history. I don't know anything about my gurus. I don't know anything. I didn't know. If you had asked me at that time, can you name the Jara Sahibzade? I would have said no. Can you name Panch Pyare? I wouldn't have been able to do it. But I just remember having this feeling of I don't want my daughter to be thinking this is normal behaviour. So then I really undertook a journey of just growth and development, of curiosity, of understanding what is Sikhi, what is this great faith that I was born into. And don't forget, this is, I'm 30 years old. The internet has moved on. We've had incredible resources. Basics of Sikhi started up in 2012. Jagraj Singh was a big part of my journey, both at the beginning, because he had set something up called Ask FM, I think it was, and he would answer everyone's questions. Like, you could ask him anything. And he played. He was actually the trigger as to why I then took Amrit as well, which I'll share. And so I started exploring. I started listening. I started going to camps. I started speaking to people. I started speaking to my husband with curiosity. And Harinder actually used to always say to me, I can tell you and show you, but I think you need to go and find out for yourself. So, he used to say to me, why don't you go to a Sikhi camp? I'll have, I had Daya then. He's like, I'll have Daya, you go. And I remember the very first Sikhi camp that I went to, I was so scared. I took my cousin to Belinda, who's joined us. I told her she had to join me because, so my paternal family, my dad's side of the family, who we grew up in with Wolverhampton, who I still have an incredible amount of love and reverence and respect for, but are very different to my maternal side of the family. So my Masis, who are into Sikhi. But growing up, we didn't really have much to do with my nange. I think that happens, my mum couldn't drive. I think your dad's side of the family sometimes takes preference if they're quite dominant. But I remember just getting curious and speaking to people and understanding. So we were going to go to our first Seek to Inspire Sikhi camp. And I remember just feeling so overwhelmed and scared at the thought of being in company of 300 Singhs and Singhaniya, so baptised Sikhs. I felt like I was going to be judged. I felt like I wouldn't feel good enough. I felt that my questions would be ridiculous. I just felt like, some of the stuff that I wanted to answer, they would be like, what, you're 33 years old now and you haven't got the answers to some of these questions. But it wasn't like that at all. So it was a real journey of just going with an open mind, loving it, speaking to people. And I remember I used to always look out for the women who I knew weren't born into a Sikhi family, so weren't born into Amritdhari families, and I would seek them out and say, Benji, tell me your story. I need to know, how was it? What did you do? How has it been? Because I wanted to kind of get all that information out of them. And that was a big part of my journey. And just going to, and it was a journey of 4 years. So for 4 years, before we were blessed with Amrit, that was 3 years ago, it was going to the Gurdwara, speaking to people, reading, listening to divans. It was having... so I'm quite intellectual. I need answers. I need to know theory. I need to understand, well, why don't we do this? Why do we do this? What's the explanation? Sonia, oh, I feel like this now. Yeah. We come to a point where we want the answers to some of life's big questions. And what you need to do is seek those answers out. So I had to seek those answers out for myself, off my own initiative, and do it even though I was so far out of my comfort zone. So gradually I did that. I went to more divans, and actually my husband and my mother-in-law, I have to say, were incredibly supportive. They were like, we will be there with you, we'll take the kids, we'll do whatever we can to support your journey on this path. So some of the things that started to happen for me was that my circle was very much similar to what I was into. So what was I into? I was into like fashion, eating out, going out, partying. I was into quite surface level stuff, I would say. So inevitably, if I'm into that, that's what my circle is going to be, because your circle is a reflection of you. And I just remember when I went to my first Sikhi camp and I started to see these groups of Sikh women together, I felt a yearning. I just felt like that's what I want to be. I want Sangat like that. I want friends like that. I want to be part of that. I don't want to be part of what I am anymore. And as I started to come into Sikhi, so this was one of the questions that came, Harpreet, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So one of the questions that came was, did your relationships change, and did you lose any relationships on your path to Sikhi? And the answer is yes. And it's only inevitable, because when you are vibrating at a certain frequency, and if that frequency is a frequency of fashion, going out, drinking, being sucked into that world, that's the energy you're putting out, so that's what you're going to get back. The minute you start to ask yourself some of the big questions, what is life? What am I here to do? What's my soul's calling? Why am I feeling like this? What are these emotions in my body? I feel like there's a message being delivered to me. It is inevitable that your whole, your ambience is going to change. Your aura is going to change. Your mindset is going to change. And because you've changed, your crowd is going to change. So for me, it was a period of actually a lot of relationships started to shift and change. And a lot of relationships that, honestly, if you had said to me, I would have given you £1 million and said, this person is going to be with me till the end of my days. They are no longer to be seen. But what happened was, I knew I wanted this to step on this path. I knew I wanted Sikhi. I knew how I felt when I was in a Gurdwara. I knew how I felt when I was hearing certain things. I knew, I'm sure some of my family are on this and they probably remember this. All I wanted to talk about was Sikhi. All I wanted to talk about was, I've read this, I've heard this, I've done this. What do you think? How do you think we can? And so when I'm not, that's what I want to talk about. People who don't want to talk about that don't want to be in my energy. They're going to fall out of that energy. But initially I found that really, really difficult. I remember one time I was driving, so my parents were still in Wolverhampton. I remember driving on the M40. I remember sobbing, just sobbing, because I just felt so let down, and I felt so like, where are all these people? Where are my family and all these people that I thought? And I remembered one of the most powerful things that we can do is do an ardas. So an ardas is a request, is a supplication to the Creator, to Waheguru, and is a request to ask for something with your heart, with your soul. And what I had asked for was, I had asked for Sangat, and I had said to Guruji, my ardas was to Guru Gobind Singh Ji, and I had said to them, I want to walk on this path. I need to get closer to you. I know that there's people in my life that are going to take me away from you, so you need to take those people away from me. I don't know why I feel so emotional. So you need to take those people away from me and only bring the people that are going to bring me closer to you. And that's exactly what happened. So certain relationships just melted away. You know that saying, you get ghosted? So, honestly, relationships that I had, friendships that I had for 20 years, 25 years, they just melted, didn't call, didn't message, didn't want to be part of my life, and there were other relationships that there was a bit more friction. So I had to surrender all of that and just remember that I had done this ardas because this is what I had wanted and I had asked for, and my Guru Sahib had delivered, because I had said to them, you need to take away people that are taking me away from you, and that's exactly what they did. But the bigger lesson in that is, and so some of the questions I had got was, what is the biggest lesson in Sikhi that I had got, was that whole experience. The biggest lesson that taught me was detachment. Because I had put so much of myself and invested so much in these relationships that they hurt. It really, really hurt. It felt so painful to then separate. But consistently and constantly, one of the biggest messages in our faith is that you need to detach yourself from people and from things, from anything that you are not taking with you into the next world. What are you giving your energy to? And that is my biggest lesson. And I am so grateful, because that what's happened now, when I see all this stuff happening with COVID now, is that lesson has stood me in good time for this now. So I had this conversation with my husband. I was like, well, what's the worst that could happen? Really, what's the worst? All of this goes. It's fine. We're not detached. None of this is ours anyway. All of this is by Guruji's blessings. So if they need to take this back, that's fine. I'm absolutely detached, and I surrender to that. So that was my other thing, was that I surrender to you. I surrender to the higher power of the plan for my life. And if that plan is taking Amrit, is coming into Sikhi, then I'm prepared to do that, but I just need a little bit of time. So as I was going through these 4 years, and in terms of practical things, I stopped cutting my hair. So I remember and I took it, this was baby steps, 1 year I said, okay, this is the year I'm going to stop doing my eyebrows, right? So this year I stopped. The second year I said, this is the year I'm going to stop cutting my hair on my head. So it was really, really basic baby steps of how do I step into my faith. It wasn't overnight. It was learning, adapting, implementing, of being supported with Sangat. The Guru Sahib sent me the most incredible Sangat. Like, I often say this, when you ask, and particularly if you're asking for things like this, if you're asked for Sangha, then honestly, they started popping up like mushrooms. It was just incredible. And it was the right people. It was the right people that I needed to help support me. So if that's something you're struggling with, if you know you want to follow a spiritual path and a spiritual calling, and you don't have people in your life, ask, make the request, ask to be sent to those people to show you the way, because it will happen. So as I was just sort of learning and understanding and adapting and thinking, and as the time went on, it all got a little bit easier, and seeing the miracles that were happening and seeing the strength that was happening, and where that was emanating from, because what I felt was missing in my life was a sense of substance. So, growing up, we had a great childhood. I have a great life. And it was all very surface level stuff. What was missing was the substance and the grit, and the having something to hold on to that was bigger than me, bigger than a human being, an understanding that I belonged to something that had a lineage and had history and that had roots. And I got that from Sikhi. I got that from turning to my Guru, from turning to Vaheguru and asking for it. And I think there's quite a few Sakhis in our faith, in our history, around how many people have had to ask for their faith, have had to ask for Sikhi. It's not something, I think there's quite a few more knowledgeable Sikhs on here, so maybe they'll say the right Bhakti. But without good garam, without work, this isn't something that is just necessarily handed to us on a platter. That it has to be a level of effort and endurance that goes to it, and the lessons that come from that are the lessons of detachment, surrender, of acceptance. So then we got to a few years ago, and I think I was 90% there. I had stopped drinking alcohol, I had stopped cutting my hair, I had a deep connection with Guru Sahib. I had gone to about 5 years of Sikhi camps. I had Sangat. I was my dear Benji and Baji were hosting this like weekly Simran program. So every week we were getting together as a Sangat, and I think I was nearly there. But as with all things, you need a bit of a push and a bit of is this really something that I can commit to and want to do? And for me, that happened when we heard the news that my Masiji had cancer. She had breast cancer. She was diagnosed with breast cancer at 48 and sadly passed away at 50. And so the whole journey of supporting our family through that, and then also having the grief and the bereavement that came through that, is when I saw Sikhi, because our faith is a very practical faith. It's a faith that gives you strength. It's a faith that gives you hope and acceptance about death. But I saw that materialise in a way that I had never seen before. Before that, I have been to funerals and I've been to things before, and there was always a lot of crying. There was always a lack of acceptance of what it was. And I really struggled with that up until I saw it. When you step into your faith and you understand that there is a divine hukam that is being played, which is a divine will, that our Guru Sahib has told us that if we've come here, we have taken form in this bodily form, that we are one day going to go. And what we're doing here is going to help us in the other realm. And that's when I really kind of started to understand what Sikhi was about. And I remember thinking and saying to Harinder, I think I'm ready. What do you think? Should we do this? Should we take Amrit? And he had always said to me, always, since day dot, the minute you're ready, I've always taken Amrit. The minute you're ready, I'm ready. Let's go. And really, it was a little bit like that. I had said to him, I think I'm there. I think I'm ready, but I'm not sure. So, but the what really catapulted it was that although I was doing this, I was in Rath. I had, we also had the news of Jagraj Singh, the Basics of Sikhi founder, and his diagnosis of bowel cancer, and that really, really hit hard. That and my Massey's cancer hit me really, really hard. In that, what it called, when you are thinking about these things, you're thinking about terminal illness, you're talking about death, what it called for was, what do you believe in, Rupinder? What is your belief set? What are you waiting for? And I always remember, Jagraj Singh said something so incredible, and this was the bit that compelled me then to take Amrit, was that he said, if you believe this path of faith is the path for you, take Amrit, don't delay. None of us know how long we have. And that was it. I heard that and I just said, right, I knew there was an Amrit Sanchar happening at the beginning of the year. So I said, right, I'm putting my names down, we're doing it. And the process even up to that point was, I remember just thinking, am I worthy enough? Is this something that I'm going to be able to commit to? Is this something that is going to is this something that's written for me? Like, can I do this? This is me, like my hair and my makeup and all of this stuff, even though I had been through that 4-year journey of learning and adapting and understanding. And the night before the Amrit Sanchar, I was pacing. I remember I was at home and I was pacing up until 2-3 in the morning, and I just remember saying, Guru Sahib, I don't know if I can do it, and I don't know if I can. What if I'm blessed with Amrit? And my biggest concern was and is always not about me. I'm a human being. I'm fallible. I will make mistakes. I will say, there's things I'm saying here, there are things that I will do is wrong. I can take that and accept that for myself. I never want anything to be a reflection of my Guru. So my thing was, I never want to make a mistake. And for someone to say, oh, is that what Guru Nanak speaks like? And I remember just pacing and being overwhelmed and thinking, I don't know if I can do this. And I remember feeling a hand on my shoulder. It was only me at home. I felt a hand on my shoulder. I just heard the words saying, you've got this. I've got you. Do it. And it was just that moment of just like, yeah, this is for me. This is a life I want to live. This is what I'm going to commit to doing. So we did, and it's been 3 years. And so one of the questions I got was, is there anything you miss about your previous life? And the answer to that is no. It actually feels like, I tell you how it felt. I remember when we took Amrit, someone said to me, how does it feel? Like, do you feel weird? How does it feel? And I just remember saying to them, I feel like, I was 35 years old. I was 34. I turned in January. I was 35 in the April. And I said, you know what? I just feel like I've woken up from a dream. That all of that 34 years before this point was a dream, and I've just woken up and seen the world for what it is and how it's meant to be. And actually with our Amrit Sanchar, with our ceremony, it's considered to be a rebirth, and it is considered to be that's you taking on a new birth, a new life, and it is that feeling of being like that. So I in terms of my previous life then, and I always say that, and I sometimes I forget, like I said to Harinder, oh my God, that was happened. And it's not because I'm forgetful. I have the memory of an elephant. I remember things. But my life has been split into two parts, and there are things that perhaps happened before my Amrit Sanjad that it feels like it was a different life. I don't feel like the same Rupinder. I feel like it was someone else that it had happened to. But in terms of missing anything, no, really nothing. But being absolutely candid, when I stopped drinking, it was probably a period of 18 months of adjustment. And 18 months of, I was going to a lot of networking events, and we used to have a lot of social events outside of work and lots of award ceremonies. And the first thing we would do is you'd be handed a glass of champagne, or but I'm going to be really candid, and I want to share this because I feel like alcohol and South Asian women is a big thing. And I feel like it's not being talked about openly for so many reasons, which I understand. So I say this from a place of no judgment, because I've been there, and there is no judgment. When you've been there, how can you judge? But what I realised for myself, and I'm sharing this in the hope that perhaps it might resonate with someone else, is that I was using alcohol as a crutch. And it was giving me a false sense of confidence. It was giving me an emboldenment. It was giving me courage. And what I then realised is that I have that from my faith now. I have that emboldenment. I have that courage. I have that confidence from Sikhi, from my guru. But it was a moment of clarity and understanding when I stopped drinking on how much I was using it in a way that isn't appropriate. And I know that to be true for many, many, many South Asian women. And so I'm saying that from a place of love. And if that's something that you're perhaps struggling with, please message me afterwards, because honestly, I can talk about that and talk about how and what needs to happen. And it's really interesting because time goes really quickly, doesn't it? I said I was only going to be on here for like half an hour. I remember once, quite recently, only a year ago, I think we were out somewhere, I can't remember, maybe we were walking through central London or something, and there was a group of drunk women, and they were behaving as women do when you're drunk, and it was a squealing and the drinking, and the shoes were falling off and all of this stuff, right? And okay, I'm going to be really honest, I judged them, and I said to my husband, I was like, oh, look at them, what they're playing at. I was like, oh, aren't you grateful that I never behaved like that, or we never behaved like that, as in me, my friends, or my family, when we were drunk? And Harinder looked at me and he went, that's exactly how you used to behave. And I just remember thinking, oh my God, I used to behave like that. And first of all, well done you for putting up with that. But I didn't even realise. So that's just something I just want to say, but also, listen, if you like to have a cheeky cocktail, if you like to have a glass of wine, if you like to do all of that, carry on. If you feel like that's a place that it's in a comfortable place. Girls being peer pressured into drinking in the Asian community is a big problem too. Yes, it is, Manny. Yeah, it really is. So yeah, I understand, and I understand that as well, and I understand all of it. I really, really do. So, but it was something I struggled with, and it was something that I remember the first year or so I did miss drinking. But I had to dig deeper and do the work. Why do you miss it? Because you don't like the taste of it. You don't like how you feel the effect about it. So why do you miss it? And then I realised, it's because it gives me courage. It makes me feel like this. And I was like, right, well, you need to do that by yourself. You don't need alcohol to do that. So that was some of the questions that I had. I'm just thinking what else I had. The other thing I would say is that if you feel like this is the path for you, go discover it, go for it, feel it. When we took Amrit, we only told two people that this is what we were going to do. And the reason for that was because as much as I love my parents and my family, my concern was that they wouldn't understand why I needed to make this decision, and that they would discourage me from doing it. So we didn't tell our parents. We didn't tell my mother-in-law. We told two people, and then obviously we were at quite a busy Amrit Sanjar in Leicester, so a lot of the Sangat then saw us and knew that was going to happen as well. And it was the next day I told my mum and dad and said that, oh, I took Amrit yesterday. And they could see it, and they said, look, we did see it, but we weren't sure if it was going to happen. We thought it would happen in a few years' time from now. So you need to be really selective if you're on this journey of who you share this journey with, of what you choose to share with, because it's going to be filled with so many incredible experiences. I've had so many experiences of miracles, of beauty, of calling out to my Guru Sahib when I've needed them, and being left in no doubt whatsoever that they have been here, that they are supporting me when I have asked for it. If you feel like that, please call out to our Creator. Please ask them for divine help and intervention. I promise you that it will be delivered in a way that may not immediately make sense to you, but it will all happen for you. So Sonia, I'm nervous about going to the Gurdwara. In case I make a mistake, I would have to go on my own, and I don't really know what to do. Sonia, message me. I will go to the Gurdwara, obviously after lockdown. We can go to the Gurdwara, or wherever you are, actually. I can connect you. I don't know, I think you're in the southeast. Message me. But one thing I have realised is that if you take one step, and our Gurbani says this, if you take one step towards our Guru, they take 1,000 steps towards you. And throughout my journey, it was just peppered with experiences that left me and messages that left me in doubt that they were there with me and supporting me. And sometimes it's things that feel like a coincidence. You think, oh, this is a bit of a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. All of it comes together beautifully when you're least expecting it. So I've got a few more minutes. If anyone's got any other questions, do you want to ask me on here? I'm trying to go through some of the questions that I was asked earlier on. Oh, yes. So in terms of my background and my introduction, I should have probably done that at the beginning, is my profession is I'm in human resources. So up until quite recently, I was head of HR for a human rights charity in London. I'm obviously the founder of Asian Women Mean Business. And one of the questions I was asked was, do you feel like how you looked about being in this appearance, this roop, we call it, do you feel like perhaps it may have held you back? Do you feel like in the professional world, do you feel like it's been embraced? And I'm going to tell you a story of what happened. So when I took Amrit, I had just finished up with Unilever. I was working with Unilever. I was HR business partner there. Just finished up, and we had taken Amrit in the January, and I had to go to India in the March, and then I discovered I was pregnant. So there was a lot going on, right? And I remember thinking, okay, who is going to employ a head of HR or a HR director that looks like me? How is this going to impact my career? And by the way, you know, I have a degree in psychology. I have a master's in HR. I have invested a lot of money and effort and time and energy and resources into my career. I love what I do. So that is a big part of me as well. And out of the blue, I got a phone call from a company that I had interviewed at probably 4 years before, a local company. And they had, hi, is that you, Nuri, or Sonu? I don't know. And they called me, hi. They called me out the blue and said, we've got a job. This is a job. This is what we need you to do. Are you available? Will you do it? And I was just like, are you for real? So I said to them, okay, that's great. And they said, look, we don't even need to interview you. We've seen what you've done. Just come in. And I actually was really paranoid about the way I looked. And this is a construction company. So listen, it's a very white, a certain demographic, a certain kind of people. And I said, can I just come in and see you? Because things have changed for me. I look a bit different. And I remember I went in to meet them, and the managing director said to me, oh, Brenda, you look a bit different. I think he was being really politically correct. I said, yeah, God. I said, I found God. I said, actually, I think God found me. I said, is that going to be a problem? He was like, no, of course it's not. You're here to do a job. So I did the job. And subsequently, I have got roles and I've done stuff. And I always actually go back to the words of Jagmeet Singh, who is from Canada. You know, he's the leader of the, I've lost my words. He's the leader of one of the political parties there ago, and I don't think I had taken Amrit then actually. And this question is always asked to him because he's a leader of a political party. He's an Amritdhari Sikh. He actually wears his girban very visibly. How, I think it said pause due to connection. I hope I'm back now. How do you feel the way you look has held you back? Do you feel that has held you back in a professional sense? So it's, you know, we live in a Western world. We are part of, we're educated, we're part of the corporate world in this world. Do you feel this has held you back? And what he said, and I hold this to be true, he said, all of my success is not despite my appearance, it's because of my appearance. And I absolutely hold that to be true. My husband said the same thing to me years before. Harinder, it's his story, but Harinder got onto the graduate program of Goldman Sachs at a time when he was told that no investment bank is going to recruit a Singh with a dastar and an open beard, jog on mate. And he was like, no, this is going to happen. And so he was onto the graduate program. He did really well at Goldman Sachs, and it really springboarded his success. And he used to always say that to me. He used to always say to me, this whole thing around appearance is holding people back professionally. We have to look ourselves in the mirror and be honest with ourselves. Is that an excuse? Because I promise you, if this is the path for you, and even if it involves a radical change in your appearance, I'll go back to what I was saying. Forces seen and unseen will be opening doors for you. They will make it effortless for you to put you where you need to be. That is not a reason to hold yourself back. The other question I actually had about appearance as well was about a question that comes up for a lot of women around the concept of hair and gears, and what do we do with our hair? Because in our code of conduct, one of the things is that we keep our hair, and that's everywhere. So you don't remove facial hair, you don't remove body hair. And how is that? So I'm going to be really honest and say I've been blessed with quite good eyebrows actually. So and it's always the men that come at me and say, oh, do you do eyebrows? I don't do my eyebrows. But the one thing I do have, I suffer from polycystic ovaries, so that does mean I get facial hair. But I've just accepted it, that this is who I am. And that's a great thing about our faith. We just accept who we are and we embrace it, and that there is more to life than having hair. There's much more to life. There is a bigger journey being played out here that we want to be invested in and being part of. So this is now telling me amazing eyebrows. Thanks, girls. So I've covered quite a lot. I've covered my journey. I've got even more. There's some really great stories I've got around how I felt Guru Sahib and divine intervention, because we suffered with secondary infertility, so we struggled for 2 years to conceive Sahib, and that in itself was a whole lesson around surrender and detachment and understanding that the things that are meant to come for us is going to happen in Guru Sahib's own timing. So maybe I'll cover that on another one. But I think I've covered most of the questions. I feel so blessed. I remember when I took Amrit, for every day for nearly 7 months, I used to just be like in complete awe. I still am. Honestly, every day I have a moment and I just say, how did you find me, Guru Nanak Dev Ji? How did you find me? Where was I rolling around in this dirt, and how did you find me? I wish for you, whatever faith you belong to, I wish the same for you. I wish that you have that connection with the divine, and that you find the divine and that the divine finds you. And I'm going to sign off now because I've talked for so long.